This game is crazy good. And when I say crazy, I mean crazy. For the unobservant few of you, this is Dave the Diver. You play as Dave, and you guessed it, he's a diver. This is the latest title I've forced myself to play in my recent journey of trying to get back into my hobby of playing video games, and Dave the Diver is quite possibly the best game I've ever played. So, you might be wondering, how did this R-character looking fat become the protagonist in a game that I have truly fallen in love with over the last month? Well, I could go into the development background, the studio, art design and score of the game, and I will be doing so, but let's get into the best part about this game, the story. Now, for those of you who don't want spoilers, fair enough, I'll be delving into the development journey of the game and my take on it, so skip to the time on screen now if you don't want to be spoiled. Now, for those of you who are left, sit back, grab some popcorn and enjoy. The game opens with a short cutscene with Dave lying on a beach chilling out. He gets interrupted with a phone call from an unknown individual with a sick Hawaiian shirt, and seems to propose the idea of eating sushi. As Dave is cutting for the summer and isn't eating any carbs at the moment, he puts the phone down and the game ends. Just kidding, he gets on the plane to go and meet the Hawaiian dude. Turns out this is an old friend of Dave's called Cobra, a character clearly inspired by Metal Gear Solid. After a short introduction, you go and complete your first dive. This acts as the first part of the tutorial in the game. You go about catching 3 fish with your harpoon gun. After resurfacing for the first time, you go on to encounter Bancho. He's the chef mastermind behind Bancho Sushi, which will go on to act as the sales front to your new diving business. Cobra is a bit of a shrewd businessman, and he sort of hires you as the main supply line in the form of the diver for the sushi restaurant without really telling you that that's what you're doing. Oh, and he also expects you to be the main waiter, bartender, and hirer, which is pretty typical for restaurant managers in my own experience.
He doesn't give a f***. He's dreaming. He's standing there pissed his pants looking for his tartar, caviar, white chocolate crap, and he's just running around like a toilet brush. Is anyone going to take control?
As you continue your short conversation with the blunt Bancho, honestly, why can't this guy have any charisma? You are all of a sudden interrupted by a random earthquake, which destroys much of the interior of the restaurant. Bancho is still determined to open the restaurant to customers, as he believes the most important thing is the flavour of the food being served. And so you are introduced to the main gameplay loop of Dave the Diver, which is catching fish, which you then sell in the form of sushi at the restaurant, which in turn makes you money. You get 2 diving sessions during the game, in the form of a morning and afternoon, and you spend your evenings working in the restaurant. There are literally hundreds of combinations of sushi that you can put on the menu in the restaurant, all of which is dependent on what fish you catch and collectibles you collect during the day. Increasingly rarer or harder to catch fish often go for more, as well as harder to obtain collectibles. If you catch and collect certain amounts of the ingredients for a recipe, you are given the option to upgrade your menu item so that it pleases the customer more and in turn makes you more money. Doing so does delete the amount of ingredients required for the upgrade, but you get a sick animation when you do it, so it's definitely worth it. After that, you go on to complete your first evening at Bancho Sushi. The gameplay loop of the restaurant is very different to the rest of the game. Customers arrive, usually ask for a drink which you have to pour yourself, and then you take the food to them and sometimes clean up their plates if they're messy. As the game progresses, this does get increasingly more complex and difficult, but at the start, especially during the tutorial part of the game, it's very easy. At the end of each night of service, you get an analysis of your stats, and the main part you care about is the money earned. As you end your first night and go to start a new day, a short cutscene plays of some sort of delivery boat chugging along nicely, before it gets randomly attacked by some kraken-like creature. You then go on to meet your first side character, Ellie. The game is filled with these types of characters, but they act as the production line of side missions to run parallel alongside the main storyline. She's some sort of biology student or whatever, and wants to study the area due to its interesting terrain, especially the underwater portion. Oh yeah, completely forgot to mention, the area you are diving in is creatively called the Blue Hole, and the whole reason Cobra and Bancho have set up a restaurant here is because the layout of the Blue Hole changes like every day apparently, and attracts new fauna and fish, making it the perfect location for a sushi restaurant. Anyway, Ellie asks you to fetch some stuff from the seafloor and sods off. You also get introduced to your menu system for the game, which is a smartphone. I think you're getting the gist of this now. As you can see, there's a lot of showing and telling at the start of this game. The phone is pretty cool though, and I spent a few minutes flipping it out over and over again because I found the animation satisfying. Anyway, I dive back in and go about catching some more fish. Unfortunately, especially at the start of this game, your oxygen tank is about as big as a fetus, so you can barely last 2 minutes under the water. So I proceed to almost drown immediately before rushing back to the surface. Anyway, you go on to meet Duff, who reminds me of Lester from GTA 5.
Damn, Franklin. Oh, Jesus. Any longer and I was gonna torch this place too. Frankie! Lester needs a drink.
And he's the weapons guy for this game. And yes, that's right, you can craft guns. Now, I wasn't the best at physics in school, but as far as I know, guns don't really work underwater unless you're John Wick. But let's ignore that anyway, as you go on to read about the escape pod, which is basically going to be your main method of resurfacing each time you go for a dive in the game, because as the deeper and deeper you get, it gets a bit pointless trying to swim all the way up to the surface each time. Now, I totally read everything there was to say about the escape pod at the time, and totally didn't drown to death on my next dive or anything. Anyway, after a few more dives, you get another call from Duff, who tells you you have enough resources to craft a basic rifle, and a pretty interesting cutscene starts to play. He goes on to tell you that you can get blueprints for other weapons from the seafloor. Oh, and I completed Ellie's side mission without even realizing it. After another night in the restaurant, you meet Dr. Bacon. He tells you about an ancient civilization which used to live in this area, creatively called the Sea People. They lived at the bottom of the sea in pockets away from other civilizations, but randomly went extinct due to changes at the bottom of the sea floor. Now, if that isn't a way to segue to global warming, I don't know what is.
As if it goes higher or lower, whatever the hell happens, there's climate change.
He asks you to retrieve some ancient stuff from underwater, shock, and he also introduces you to a new app on your phone, which you can use to upgrade your diving equipment to allow you to dive deeper, survive longer, and do more damage. This is where the tutorial for the game ends, and Chapter 1 begins. The Sea People storyline is one of many in the game, but it does act as the main one, and is linked to the earthquake problem, which poses a danger to the restaurant, and acts as the main motivation for your character and business associates. A little bit later, Cobra gets you on Cookster, which, you guessed it, is a parody of food media on Instagram. On my next dive, I encountered a dolphin, and for some reason was told to follow it. Turns out dolphins are even smarter than I thought, because it led me to its daughter or whatever, and I helped it free from being caught underneath a trapped net. Because of my antics on social media, we get visited by some critic-looking woman called Yoshi, who seems to have some history with Bancho. To prove that his skills as a chef have evolved, he asked me to go and get some ingredients to make some shark head dish or whatever. Upon my next dive of searching for the shark to harvest, I accidentally came across the artifact that Dr. Bacon asked me to fetch, and I get jump scared by the kraken thing from earlier, which turned out to be sleeping in the background of my diving area the entire time. Anyway, when I came up to the surface, some random guy pedals over in one of those family pedal boat things that you used to use at the water park when you were younger. This guy is called Sato, and he wants me to catch more fish, so that their entries are added onto a game called Marincar. And yes, this is a parody of the Pokédex from the Pokemon games. They even make a little reference to it in the conversation, but pause before saying it due to the meme that Nintendo goes after everyone on the internet who says anything slightly bad about them. That is just a joke, Nintendo. Please don't sue me. I love your games too. Anyway, a little while later I perfectly time a quick time event to evade an attacking fish. I then have another chat with Dr. Bacon about some sort of radar to track a signal. And the Dr. Genius Dolphin is back, and this time I save the other one from some pirates. I go on to perfectly navigate through a maze which uses ocean currents to throw me off my trajectory. And finally, the shark that Bancho wanted to impress Yoshi with is found. Back at the restaurant, she likes the dish and goes on to offer her services in the form of a hiring manager for the business, which is needed as I'm starting to struggle with the demand of the customers. Ellie wants to waste my time some more and asks me to collect some seashells, and I go on to find some sort of cave entrance that's covered up with rocks. During my next shift in the restaurant, I go on to hire my first assistant waitress to help me out, and easily complete another service. Soon after I leveled up my Cookster rating, and got an in-person evaluation done for the restaurant, which, by the way, I don't think you can fail. I crafted some sort of underwater pipe bomb and went back to the cave entrance from earlier, and Michael bayed it. I found some sort of record chamber, and got introduced to the camera mechanic, which I proceeded to use to take some pictures of the symbolism on the walls. I fetched another artifact, which I found on the floor, and Dave hears some distant speaking in the background. After some more diving, on my next resurface I show the artifact to Dr. Bacon, and get confronted by some sort of activist group creatively called Sea Blue, and their enigmatic leader, John Watson. They try to lecture me about fishing or whatever, and leave shortly after giving me a stern warning. That evening, I got my first VIP visit from some sort of game show host. They want Bancho to cook for this guy who doesn't think the restaurant is very good. But as I don't have the ingredients that they want currently, they say they will return in a few days for it to be televised. At the end of the night, I get another cutscene of some sea people in the record chamber where I was earlier, and one of them gets abducted by the Kraken monster I've been seeing throughout the game up until this point. In the morning, I speak with Dr. Bacon again, who informs me that the last artifact I found was some sort of ancient bracelet, which I can wear for some sort of buff. This acts as the first introduction to charms in the game, which give you a minor advantage in certain areas. For example, this one allows me to survive for a small amount of time after you run out of oxygen. Not that I ever need to use that. I get another call from Duff as well, who asks me to collect one of his figurines which mysteriously went missing earlier. So I dive in again to go find the shipwreck. And of course, I run into the dolphins. Again. They've been surrounded by more pirates again, but this time they're under the water. I proceed to 1v3 them quite easily and save the day, once again. I go on to find the shipwreck, and see a tentacle spawn out of nowhere and steal the figurine. Duff tells me that I'll need a gas cutter to get into the shipwreck to retrieve it. I crafted a sniper rifle the next time I resurfaced to prepare for the inevitable boss battle coming, and go back down to use the gas cutter to get through the ship, and totally didn't get sidetracked and soloed by a random fish. After that small distraction, I come face to face with my first boss fight. Turns out the Kraken was actually a giant squid the entire time. Same thing, whatever. And start off the fight with a Borderlands-style boss introduction. The boss fight itself is pretty simple. You just have to get close enough to shoot it in the eye, while dealing with the currents it throws at you. After beating the squid, you come face to face with the sea people, one of which is injured from being kidnapped earlier on. Anyway, that's a problem for another time, as you proceed to return the figurine to Duff, and celebrate your victory with the team at the restaurant. You proceed to feast on the giant squid which you harvested earlier on. And that concludes Chapter 1 of the game, after which you get instructed to venture into the depth to find out more about the mystery of the sea people, solve the earthquake crisis, and of course, catch more fish. Immediately you run into John Watson again, who has decided he wants to copy your hobby and wants to join you for some joint diving. Just kidding, it's another boss fight with him launching grenades at you with a grenade launcher, and you dodging them to get some good shots in. Upon your victory, he opens up a passageway, which you follow to venture into the depths. This area acts as the first real increase in difficulty for you to experience. As you can see, the area is much darker, and the fish are much harder to kill. But, after a bit of exploring, I found the sea people again hiding out in some corner. Dr. Bacon suggests creating a translator so that I can speak with them, and Sato congratulates me on my first boss card. from the giant squid earlier. I also got a call from some random photographer or whatever called Udo, who asks me to take some pictures of some interesting things in the blue hole.
This is a moment in history! Take a picture!
Anyway, I go on to find some annoying little octopus and follow it into another hidden room to get my charm to wear. I take a picture of some cool looking glowfish or whatever, and return to the restaurant for my evening shift. Turns out it's the night of the return of the game show host from earlier. And now, as I've collected the necessary ingredients, Bancho cooks the meal and impresses the VIP. The VIP, however, does have one critique, and that is if the restaurant had beer, it would improve the atmosphere. As a true Brit, I buy into this philosophy, so we install a beer pump immediately afterwards.
Good morning, Glenn.
I rank up my Cookster rating again, and speak to some rowdy customer called Otto, who is dressed like a farmer, but turns out he used to be a diver, and wants Bancho to cook something specific. This seems like just another side mission at first, but it acts as the segue into night diving, which I've just unlocked to fetch Otto what he wants. Because of this, I immediately go night diving, and get absolutely murked by the fish because guess what? The difficulty gets turned up at night. Yay. Anyway, after another evening service, Dr. Bacon returns with the translator, and Duff tells me I can now upgrade my guns as it's starting to get a bit difficult to use glorified potato guns on increasingly harder to kill fish. I go on to find the sea people again, and have my first conversation with Swam. Yes, his name is actually Swam, I'm not making that up.
Oh my god, bro. Oh, hell no, man. What the fuck?
Turns out that the one that was attacked is the daughter of the sea people village chief, Ramo, and he asks me to get some medicinal herbs to heal her. After some more picture taking opportunities, I go to speak to Bancho, but before I can, a little kid walks into the restaurant. This is Mackie, an introvert who speaks through the use of a puppet, which seems to have some sort of evil alter ego. Once again, it's another customer with a special request. Honestly, imagine being a restaurant owner where 1 in every 5 customers that walk in can't be asked to look at the menu, and just demand something specific to be made that you don't have the ingredients for.
I just don't understand why it's so difficult to serve some people their food.
Are you that arrogant? You haven't got a clue what's going on behind me?
Anyway, being the kind soul that I am, I agree to gather the ingredients. I go on to hire some more staff, this time for the kitchen to help Bancho out, and he turns the medicinal herbs into a delicious meal to cure the sea woman or whatever. A short while later I return back to them and heal Raimundo up. I'm then forced to play a escort/hostage rescue type mission by carrying her past dangerous fish and obstacles to get her to a certain destination. I do it so easily and she's got a full bar of health at the end. Turns out the path at the end is also blocked, and Dave isn't much of a gym goer, so I need to upgrade my gloves so that I can remove a stake that's been wedged in between some rocks. Back on the surface, I upgrade my sniper rifle to level 2. Completely forgot to mention that on some days in the restaurant, there are certain species of fish that customers will flood in for and pay extra. You're given 3 days to prepare each time, so in this case it was jellyfish, and during that night, I hit my new record for sales. The next morning, Dr. Bacon arrives with the special diving gloves as I have noodle arms, and I get a short tutorial on how to pick up rocks. Now with the gloves literally on hand, I go back down to find the sea people again, and run back into that pesky octopus from earlier. After failing to catch it, once again, it gives me another charm for some reason. And so, I use my massive muscles to remove a few stakes to free up the path. Turns out Romeo wants me to go to the sea people village with her because clearly she's never heard of playing hard to get. As I'm desperate anyway, I decide to tag along, but before I reach the entrance, there's a disturbance in the force, and I'm left face to face with another boss fight. This one's a little bit more complex than the first, and gets you to use your newly acquired gloves to grab onto objects hanging from the ceiling, because the boss is trying to suck you up as clearly someone else hasn't heard of playing hard to get either.
What?
But after some sneaky maneuvering and hitting the glowing weak spots, because of course there is, I come out victorious. Fish Guy seems to think he's pretty funny and tells me that he could handle it all by himself. I consider headshotting him for a moment before proceeding on to the Sea People village. Their front guards are expectedly caught off guard by my arrival, get it? So they take me to their leader, Tenzin, who is overjoyed at the rescue of his daughter, so much so that he tells me that they don't really trust me because clearly they're racist. So they set me the task of earning the trust of the rest of the villagers. Back at the restaurant, Yoshi reappears at the end of the night, and decides to give me the backstory to her and Bancho, which I never asked for. Turns out Yoshi used to be some sort of restaurant manager at this old hotel, which had recently employed Bancho to improve their Japanese menu. Anyway, there's this big movie star who's also kind of a food critic coming in for dinner, and they want everything to be perfect. Yoshi has a chat with Bancho about the choices on the menu for the night. Bancho wants to impress with a shark's head dish, but Yoshi overrules him and they decide to go for something else. Anyway, the night comes and goes, and the movie star liked the food, but didn't find it perfect. So Bancho decides to pull out the shark head meal, which puts her off her food, and the story ends. Anyway, with that time wasted, back in the present day, I catch up with Dr. Bacon. I tell him about the events of the previous day, and that I've been given some sort of magical mirror, which can help me travel to the Sea People village whenever I want. I go on to complete some more side missions for the Sea People to earn their trust, which is basically just, here, take this thing, take it to this person, and bring back this thing and we'll kinda like you, thanks. Back up at the boat, Cobra introduces me to catching tuna, which you do differently from any other fish in the game for no apparent reason. And finally, I get the ingredients together for the farmer guy Otto for him to enjoy his special request. And the same goes for the strange girl Mackie. Turns out Otto is in fact a farmer, and the next morning you meet up with him, where he introduces you to a fish farm, which you can use to breed species of fish, if you get their eggs, which randomly drop sometimes when you catch them. Back down in the sea village, I beat some loser at a card game, and lose a seahorse race because of course I do. I mean, how do they even come up with this stuff? And I attend a wedding for some reason, even though I've barely known these people for about an hour. After some more searching around, I get myself into another boss fight somehow, which turns out to be the easiest yet. And upon another victory, I get some sort of tablet or whatever, which turns out to contain a video message from Mackie's dad, who died to the very thing I just murked. Casual. She gets over it pretty quickly, and decides she wants to work in the kitchen. Back down with the Sea People, I repair the statue of the ancient leader which got damaged during the wedding earlier, and in doing so, reach the reputation needed to carry on the main story. Tenzin proceeds to tell me about the village, and how they survive on the fruits of this tree, which goes down below the village into a glacier for some reason. However, because of recent changes to the seafloor's temperature, the glacier has been melting, which has been resulting in people getting sick. This is also linked to the earthquakes we've been seeing throughout the game. Turns out they've lost the key into the glacial passage, because of course they have, so I have to go and retrieve it for some tomb in the blue hole. Back up on the surface, I craft a new gun with Duff, and do some housekeeping on my Marin car collection. That evening, before service starts, a director called Michael Bang arrives acting as another VIP, and I'm sure you can see who the inspiration behind this is. Randomly, before the next morning arrives, I get a cutscene about Duff, and I end up playing a Guitar Hero-esque minigame in his dreams.
What the f is this piece of shit?
Yeah, I have no idea why either. Somehow, I'm now on chapter 4, and before I can go looking for the missing key I was told about earlier, Otto has another surprise for me. This time, it's an actual farm. I don't know if this guy is familiar with the state of farming at the moment in the real world, but clearly those difficulties aren't affecting Otto because he's just giving free stuff away.
Farming 7 days a week for a year on a 1,000-acre farm has generated an income of £144.
Correct.
I go through a short tutorial on farming and soon head back to the water. Turns out I didn't actually need to find the area that they were on about earlier, because Swam takes me there himself. But before I go in, he tells me about some ancient sea people that went mad and started cannibalizing other people, so they locked them in there. But it was like 300 years ago or something, so nothing to worry about. He pushes out anyway, and I make my way inside. Surprise, surprise, they are still alive in some sort of zombified form. Here the Metal Gear references come back, and you have to play as a diving ninja to avoid them as you navigate through the maze to acquire the key you need. As I narrowly escape, I'm confronted by John Watson. Again, this time he has some sick high-tech diving suit which I'm definitely not jealous of. This boss fight offers the first slight amount of difficulty so far. He's got these grenades he's shooting out which you need to knock back with a baseball bat to do any damage to him, all while trying to avoid his ramming attacks and mines he leaves everywhere. As I'm a true mermaid at heart, I beat him first try and make my way back into the village. Tenzin tells me that the zombies from earlier are called Gadons, whatever that means, and he gives me the full backstory of where they were essentially a band of power-hungry sea people who decided to use some corrupt tree fruit to get strong and then turned out mad. I'm sure there's some subliminal messaging going on there in the background, but as I didn't particularly care, I swiftly moved on. Before I decided to explore the glacial area, I spent some time doing some more exploring and fishing. I collected some items I needed for side missions, and upgraded my weapons. And I ran into the pink dolphin again, this time for a quick photo shoot. I also came across a baby whale in a cave, which I had to safely escort back to its mum. Sato randomly turns up when it hit night, and tells me I've got the opportunity to get a rare Marincar if I dive this evening and find a vortex. I assumed this led to another boss battle, so I took the dive, found the vortex, and entered it. This one was pretty simple, just involved me dropping explosive barrels on its protected back until it ran away. At the end of another night of service, Dr. Bacon wanders back into his boat and gets a signal from the radar we used earlier on, so he follows it to a cave. I get to play as Dr. Bacon for a bit, and do some puzzle solving, but comes face to face with some pirates. After a short chase sequence which I easily win without crashing a single time, back in the water with Dave, I come across this photo shoot for a side mission, and find a missing villager who is getting attacked by, you guessed it, another boss. 30 seconds later, I've won and I carry on. As I return to the sea village, I do a short minigame for one of the villagers, and go on to investigate the glacial chamber. I have to complete a series of puzzles to get through the area, because it's been blocked off by ice, because of course it has. I totally complete all the puzzles without searching anything up on the internet, but there's a rock in the way at the end, so I have to ask Cobra for help. While he tries to figure out the solution, I go and play another card game. This one is different from earlier because of some subplot which goes on and I never bothered with, so I still don't really know what it's about. I then use the crowbar he gives me to redirect a laser beam created by the divine fruit to melt the ice. In the next area, there's another photo opportunity, but it's pretty cold, so I take the opportunity to wipe my goggles. I go through a few more pointless puzzles and come face to face with a massive Gadon, which I wake up. It chases me through some tunnels at surprisingly high difficulty, and I make it out the other end with Swam gloating as usual.
Do you honestly think you're f***ing funny?
Now that I've found a way into the glacial area, Dave decides it's too cold for him, so the story is put on hold while Dr. Bacon figures out a warmer diving suit. In the meantime, we get a visit from a new VIP, this time being some annoying rapper. As usual, he wants something on the menu that we don't have. Shocker. And I'm given an ingredient list of things to collect. Michael Bang also returns and we give him his special request. And another funny little cutscene plays. The next morning, Otto gives me some more stuff to do at the farm, and later on, Sato tells me about another boss fight I can do during the night. This time it's a boxing mantis shrimp, and it does genuinely pose some difficulty at first. I'm not sure if it's because this boss is a bit harder to dodge than the rest, but it did take me a few goes to beat it. A little bit further down the line, I go through another stealth mission. This time I'm infiltrating the Deep Blue headquarters for Cobra. Turns out they aren't quite the humanitarian group they first made themselves out to be. But I get through the mission with little difficulty and make my escape. Turns out I acquired something I needed for the warm diving suit without even realizing it. So while I waited for Dr. Bacon to craft it, Sato introduced me to a digital fish carrying game that definitely isn't a copy of one of those cat or dog ones from a few years ago. Anyway, after some more farming, breeding, upgrading and side questing, the new diving suit is finally ready. Immediately after entering the new glacial area, I realized that even the small fish here have a massive health bar for some reason. I'm vaguely told to have a look around, which turned out to be a lot harder than I initially thought. So while I spent my time doing that during the day, I was working in the restaurant again at night. The VIP rapper returned and got his vegetable sushi. What a pointless creation that is. And it turns out he's Otto the farmer's son, and for some reason he starts working on the farm as well, sorting out the chickens. Finally, on my next dive, I find the thing that I was supposed to take a picture of, and Dr. Bacon says he'll get back to me on it as usual. As I wait, that night in the restaurant there's a cooking competition between Bancho and another chef. You actually get to play as Bancho, like you're back in your cooking mama days. As I'm a master chef, I easily win. On my next dive, Swam does a spell, and the next door opens in the glacial area. At the end of another set of mazes, I complete a puzzle to turn on the first of 3 switches at the bottom of the glacial area. And a bit later on, I go on to help some guy and his turtle. For some reason, this turns into Angry Birds at the end. And thankfully, I get another session of chasing an octopus. This time, however, I corner it, and I'm given the option to show it mercy, or harvest it. Being the kind individual that I am, I ended it. I used the antidote or whatever from the octopus to save the dolphin it was poisoning for some reason earlier. Another night dive later, I find myself in another boss battle. I have to avoid this shark while I wait for this old woman to come by and haymaker it into oblivion.
Welcome! Punch!
On my next dive into the glacial area, I see a massive whale in the background, and I'm not gonna lie, I never saw it again. I'm guessing it was part of some side mission that I never completed. Finally, after some more searching, I find another entrance into a mystery area. This time, I ride a beluga through a small passageway with strong ocean currents, until I come across another boss. After sufficiently headbutting it a few times, I win the battle, and flip the next switch, making it 2 out of 3. Now down on the ocean floor, I encounter Swam again. He's found the 3rd and final door, and you go through a joint puzzle maze, switching between the 2 characters to solve different sections until you've reached the end. And of course, there's a boss, which you have to beat by yourself because Swam can't be arsed. This one's pretty easy to avoid, so after a bit of to and fro, I win the battle and find the 3rd and final switch. Now the final part of the game is coming up, so if you're still watching, pay attention. Back at the bottom of the seafloor, the 3rd switch has started to open the bottom gate, but it's jammed by some tree roots. So while you're trying to figure out what to do, John Watson makes his final appearance. This time he's in a mini submarine, which I couldn't do any damage to no matter what I tried. But not to worry, not long into the fight, some dinosaur looking thing appears and rips the submarine to shreds. This is honestly the hardest boss fight in the game. 2 main problems. 1. It's got a massive health bar, and you never really know how much you've actually got left until you win. 2. It's much faster than you think. It also doesn't help that you're encouraged to use a broken off missile launcher from the submarine. And sure, it does a lot of damage, but the main problem is that it takes ages to lock on to the damn thing. And most of the time, by the time it's charged up and you're ready to fire, you are already getting chomped down on. Oh, and this thing hits like a truck. I had a grenade launcher at this point in the game, which pretty much dealt with any other fish or boss with ease, but I did die quite a few times in-game. After about 10 minutes, I finally beat it, and Dr. Bacon arrives with a little remote underwater drone thing to laser through the tree roots. That's apparently going to take 2 days, so I spent the remainder of my time doing some fishing, upgrading, item collecting, cooking, competing, and of course, farming in a diving game. I savoured my final 2 days, knowing that my time to the game was coming to an end soon. Everything rested on these final missions. It started off much slower than I anticipated. I ventured through the control room entrance, and found some weird tree sap stuff that was blocking the way. Luckily, there's these little snail things which weigh the same amount as a small car, which I used to get past the first puzzle. Next, I was ambushed by these little prehistoric lobster things, which actually posed quite the issue when they swarmed in numbers. After getting past those, you have to block off some mini volcano shaft things to build up pressure to go through the ceiling. I'm not gonna lie, the entire area reminded me of Bowser's Castle a bit from Super Mario Bros. Using some ancient tree fruit, I blow through the tree sap which was originally blocking my way, and I venture through the tunnels, avoiding catching on fire while I do so. Yeah, being on fire underwater, I don't get it either. But coming across another nest of the lobster things, I use some laser machine powered by the ancient fruit to absolutely disintegrate them, and make my way into the final boss arena. After removing the remaining lobsters from the nucleus of the tree, I come across the mother of them. This acts as the final boss of the game, and let me tell you, it's a fun one. Unfortunately, I completely ran out of bullets by the time I made it here, but luckily, Dr. Bacon comes to the rescue with a remote drone thing from earlier. Duff puts some sort of code into the drone which unlocks weapons mode. It gives you unlimited oxygen, unlimited ammo, and lets you slow down time. I have no idea why it can do that, but it's pretty cool. And so, a Terraria-like battle commences, with it shooting hundreds of his little soldiers at me, while I attempt to dodge them and land some shots to the head. There's multiple stages to the fight, such as the times it turns around and sends out these energy balls, which multiply into even smaller energy balls when it explodes. Just to remind you, this is a diving simulator. Halfway through the fight, Duff finally tells me that I probably won't beat it if I carry on the way I am, so he unlocks the drone fully to give me access to some super powerful plasma cannon thing. Only issue is, like the rocket from earlier, you have to charge it up for quite a while before you can use it. Luckily, it does obliterate everything in its path, which makes it much easier to use than the launcher. After a little while, the fight evolves again into a moving landscape battle, where it shoots thousands of its soldiers in some sort of pattern, with me shooting through the middle with a plasma shot, reminding me a bit of the final battle in Ender's Game. At the end of the fight, it turns into a case of just straight up running from the damn thing, and a final quick time event wins you the fight. The rest of the sea people turn up, and you work together to blast a final divine fruit laser beam into its skull, in turn, winning you the game. There is a short epilogue, where you get the chance to speak to all the characters you formed relationships with along the way, and the end credits sequence is literally the best I have seen in any game. For some wacky reason, Dave launches into space, and you shoot at the names of the people who worked on the game. I'm not kidding, I told you, this game is absolutely nuts. After I completed that, I decided to call it quits. It took me over 20 hours to complete the game, falling short of the how long to beat estimate by 5 hours. And when I tell you I enjoyed every second, believe me, I enjoyed every damn second of this game. Before I go over my detailed thoughts on the game, let's talk about the inspirations and people behind the game. Dave the Diver originally started out as a mobile game, being announced back in 2018 by Nexon mobile subsidiaries, Neoplay and Studio 42, in collaboration with National Geographic to bring awareness to the beauty and degradation of the ocean. The game was less ambitious to begin with, and lacked the resource management side of things that developed in later versions. It also had you fighting robot fish at the end for some reason, but considering how the actual game turned out, it's not that far-fetched. In 2022, it was announced by a different Nexon subsidiary, Mint Rocket, and the game developer, Jaeho Hwang, based the initial concept on a real-world restaurant on Jeju Island in South Korea, which apparently has an owner who dives during the day for fish and serves it at night. There are also other clear inspirations for the game, such as stealth elements and the character of Cobra being inspired from Metal Gear Solid, and I personally found the art style a bit similar to Fruit Ninja and Cooking Mama at times. The pixel art aesthetic plays well with the playful and cartoonish music which alters in each area you are in. And let's be honest, the best part about this game are the cutscenes, which came from Mint Rocket's internal art and animation team, which were overseen by Hwang. At first, the team struggled to balance the numerous mechanics that they had coded into the game, such as the restaurant, resource management and farming. But this was later ironed out through the feedback of the early access period in October 2022, and it released 10 months later on PC in the summer of 23. As expected, the game received immediate critical acclaim, 9 on IGN, a 90 critics score accompanied by a 8.2 for general audiences on Metacritic, and finally a 91 on PC Gamer. It went on to be nominated for Best PC Game, Best Indie Game, and Best Game Trailer at the Golden Joystick Awards, Best Independent Game at the Game Awards, and won the award for the Sit Back and Relax game at the Steam Awards, all in 2023. It's an understatement to say then that this game was well received. But to be honest, I still don't think it's appreciated as much as it should be. The game has surpassed 5 million total sales, but that's tiny in comparison to some other titles and brands. So, on to my own thoughts on the game. To be honest, I'm at a bit of a loss for words when it comes to Dave the Diver. Probably because I've used them all up in the last 7,000. But this game does so many things well. It has no reason to be this good in so many areas. And quite frankly, why is it? You could argue the fact that you could cut 30% of this game out and it would still be just as good. But maybe not. As I've said, I truly loved every second with this game. There isn't a dull moment at all. I like how at the start of each boss battle, it takes me back to my time with Borderlands. I like how every VIP is some sort of pop culture reference, and they're not afraid to hide their views on some celebrities through the smart dialogue that makes you chuckle. And I like how the game is based around real-world events. Don't get me wrong, this game is far from realistic. But when it comes to things like the ocean floor heating up, you can't not make the link to the global warming. And there's referencing to overfishing, activist groups, and of course, Nintendo. At the end of the day, Dave is just a normal guy with a unique hobby that, at the start of the game at least, he's not very good at. He's not heroically minded, immensely strong, or purposefully motivated, but you do see yourself in him at times. Personally, I saw the most resemblance in how little effort he makes in paying attention to long rants that some of the characters make. The art style of this game, although simplistic, is satisfying to play around in. It reminds me a lot like Unavowed, with the funky 2D textures, which are cut up with cutscenes throughout to make you more immersed. But, unlike Unavowed, the gritty, dark and depressing visuals are replaced with ones that are more entertaining, bright and joyful. Another similarity I found with this game and Unavowed is how I played both of them. I talked about the chapter-like playstyle I took on in my video on that game, and Dave the Diver literally has chapters for you to follow. Each one symbolises the changes you experience on your next dives, with new enemies, new subplots, and new environments. It's not like I started out the game with the goal of completing the main storyline as fast as possible and ignoring the side missions. I just decided to play it as it comes, and although I'm still pretty far off 100%ing it, I still feel like I've done a lot in this game. One moment you're on a peaceful dive, listening to the calming atmosphere and music, and you go looking for certain ingredients that Bancho has requested for that day. The next, you're literally playing a Guitar Hero-esque minigame in a hermit's brain, who makes and upgrades your weapons that's also obsessed with anime so much that he will secondhand risk your life on several occasions. After that, you can be tending to your chickens in the farm, making sure to plant extra seeds so you can upgrade that certain recipe that you want to sell more of to customers. The next, you're literally Max Payne, slowing down time in the water to avoid energy balls being excreted out by an ancient underwater lobster thing which has grown to a ginormous size due to the geothermic increase in temperature on the sea floor, which in turn has been turning a species of mermaid people sick and causing earthquakes above land that are destroying your restaurant. And why, just why, are you in space at the end? Like, I get it's not narratively important at all, it's just a unique style to make you more invested in reading the names of the geniuses who came up with this game, but who even comes up with this stuff? I don't mean this lightly when I say this game has truly changed my life. I don't want to play another game again that isn't as good as this. It really has left that much of an impression. As someone who only a few months ago could barely stay concentrated on a game for more than 30 minutes at a time due to a mix of boredom and burnout, that's a scary statement to say out loud. I hope in reflection I can move on from this game and learn to appreciate other titles in the complex ways that they can impress me, in the same way that I've been shocked by every minute of my playthrough of Dave the Diver. In reflection then, I can't recommend this game enough. If you have the funds and you've made it to the end of this video, please pick it up and play it through, you won't regret it. Even if you know the story now, I promise you there is so much stuff to do in this game that you won't be disappointed. And if you are one of the ones that has stuck through until the end, thank you very much, it does mean a lot more to me than you know. These videos take a lot longer than one might think, but I'm motivated to get one out every 3 or 4 weeks or so, depending on how much I have to say really. Massive thanks again, and I'll see you with the next one.